Hello. You are listening to the Carroll Connection with your host, Jared Carroll.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Carroll Connection. I'm your host, Jared Carroll, here to bring you guys another great episode. I did want to take a chance to shout out my last week's episode 127 with Laurel Mulhern. She is a personal trainer as well as a photographer. We talked about how she went to college and she went to study history and stuff like that, and how when she decided to go live in England for a little bit, it changed her course and decided to get into personal training. She'd done that for about 10 years. And then started doing photography as well and started doing couple sessions as well. So it was a really cool conversation. We talked about travel. Travel was a big thing that we talked about. So it was a really great episode. And the values of personal training and creating that relationship with their clients. So great episode. You can check it out, thecarrollconnection.simplecast.com. Also available Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the major listening platforms. If you like to watch your podcast, you can check it out on YouTube. Just search The Carroll Connection or Jared M. Carroll. It should pop up right before you. And if you want to be a guest or return as guest, you can reach out on Instagram at Jared M. Carroll or at The Carroll Connection. Or if you have my number or Snapchat, reach out that way and we can set it up. So that brings me to today, episode 128, with a returning guest from episode 87, Josh Troiano.
Thank you for having me back on, Jared. I'm excited to be back.
Appreciate you for kind of doing this last minute, too. I had to move some stuff around, and I was already planning to bring you back on, too. She had reached out and said you had interest about coming back on, so I was like, all right, perfect. And I know we last left off about a year ago, going into your senior year and talking about football and stuff like that, and now we're a year later. The season has ended, so we'll kind of talk about that, and then we'll get into some other stuff that we had lined up that we talked about off the podcast. So to kind of start the podcast, I'll let you kind of catch everybody up on like what you've been up to since that last episode.
Sure, a lot has happened since the last year. It's been a productive, fun year, you could say, in many ways. It is hard to generalize 365 days in one words because of variety, but nonetheless, it was a productive year. Like I said, I was training for my senior football year season, which went pretty well. Obviously, there were ups and downs, but our record improved. We beat Dighton Rehoboth for the first time in 5 years, and that's all great and stuff, but a lot of the memories that you make, they're not always the wins and stuff. It's the practices, it's the everyday stuff, it's the fun memories that you make, so that was fun. In terms of the training part, it's a rewarding process, no matter the outcome of what you're training for. Obviously, it's more rewarding if you achieve your goal, but the process in and of itself of training, and it doesn't just have to be for football, it doesn't just have to be weight training, but the process in and of itself is rewarding. It builds character, as one of my former coaches would say, and it really teaches you some good life lessons that you can carry on even after that short tenure of your football career is over. So
yeah, and the senior year part is like a really challenging and emotional time for a lot of people to kind of like accept and like move through. And I remember on that last episode, I kind of talked a little bit about my experience and like what kind of like I felt going into those games and how I felt after that last game. But I do want to kind of more focus on that leading up to the first weeks and stuff like that. So you guys had full season with the new coach. Yep. So this is kind of like, this was the second year Jay was coach. Yep. So a little bit more prepared going into the year, a little bit more of like knowing what to expect.
Yep.
So going into it, what were like the training sessions leading up in the summer? What was the vibe like? What was the energy like going into those games? What was the expectations maybe you had for yourself and the team?
So, since the winter and the summer, we were in the weight room training, and then Tuesdays I had captain's practices after the weight training session, which it was fun, especially for the skills guys, being able to throw the ball around and stuff like that, and also the social aspect, because we brought in a big freshman class, so it was good to really get to know some of those guys as well, because you've never met, you're 3 years apart. So that was pretty cool in terms of getting ready for the season. But I think it was the last captain's practice. You start as a senior, you start thinking about all the lasts you're doing in the season. It's the last captain's practice, and it's your last game, and it's in a blink of an eye. But nonetheless, we trained hard in the summer. It was great. One of the coolest things again was meeting a bunch of new people that that you didn't know previously. That was really cool. It doesn't mean you guys are best friends, but it's another person that you're meeting before who's you guys are gonna become brothers. So that was a rewarding part of it. So yeah. How
did you like being kind of in that leadership role, being able to like now you start off as the freshman looking up to the seniors. Now you're the senior looking down at the freshmen, and they're looking up to you as like a kind of like a role model. So how is that role for you, and was it challenging at all?
Yeah, so the sophomore to junior year switch and the senior to junior to senior year switch is huge, especially leadership wise, like you said. This was my second year being captain, so I was a little bit more comfortable with the captain position. There were 5 of us. I think we worked pretty well together. Obviously, there's bumps in the road. I myself, I'm not a perfect leader or anything like that, but it's in those imperfections that you learn. But nonetheless, it was really cool. I said this in my senior speech to them the day before DR that it's been an honor of a lifetime to be their captain, and I really did meant that because it was an honor, not just the lessons I learned, but the experiences and hopefully the ways in which I was able to positively impact people. It's just an honor, really. So
yeah, did you feel like during the games? Because I remember like throughout the senior year, like there's just moments like especially during like the national anthem and stuff like that, where you're just kind of like you're able to take it all in a little bit. Like, did you do that at all during the season, or were you more focused on like winning the games? Because like I did find myself there's moments like you look at the crowd, you see your family, you see your friends, especially like the home games and stuff like that. Like if you're aware of it, you're able to take it in a little bit and appreciate the moment. So I'm wondering if you had any of those moments throughout the season.
yeah, it's funny you say that. National anthem would be one of those times. It's kind of like the calm before the storm in a way. It's you've settled down after warm-ups, you're getting ready for battle per se, and you're just staring out, looking whether it's the crowds or your teammates in front of you or your opponents to the right. It's just one of those things where it's like, wow, it gives you a second to think a little bit before the events that are going to unfold very soon. But it is cool. During the national anthem, that'd be a time of when I'm just taking it all in, and then during the game, just looking at the scoreboard, stuff like that. I really did try to soak it in. It's not like it ever got in the way of me focusing on the task at hand, because you can do both. You can enjoy something and then still be focused on carrying out the present task. So I definitely did do that. I tried to soak in it as much as I can because I knew, it'd be a season I wouldn't forget.
Yeah, it's senior year is like it's unlike any other season because you do have that kind of knowledge that this is the last time you get to put the uniform on for this team for your hometown, and it is pretty emotional. That was one thing I had Cam Sears on recently, and I was telling him how like this year for some reason I just found myself on the senior year TikTok pages basically, and like I just kept seeing all these different posts from seniors and like their parents and like just the emotions, and like I kind of got like a hit of like nostalgia, and like I felt a little bit of those emotions, and so like kind of curious to like how that was for you. Like how was your senior year? How did you handle the emotions of like knowing that this is the last time you get to put on a jersey for Seekonk? Like what did you kind of do to prepare for that, and like what was it like for you?
Yeah, in terms of emotions, crying, I personally don't think men should cry over physical pain. However, other stuff I think is, that's a whole different topic. So, Fairhaven game, it's basically the SEC championship. Tough game. We were kind of the underdogs going into it, but we were up 14-0. Nonetheless, this is the most consequential play of the game. We're inside the 1, 4th down, QB sneak. That's all we need to do. We need, 1.5 feet, and we basically win the game. So coach puts me at center and trusts me and obviously the quarterback with the game. Thinking that we can deliver. And unfortunately, the snap was bad on my fault. Stuff gets fumbled, and call was debatable, but nonetheless, they say that we were short. And at that moment, things started going downhill, and unfortunately, we lost the game. I still blame myself for that. But blame aside, after the game, we knew the implications, but that was one of the games where I definitely showed emotion for a while, if you want to word it like that. After the game, I remember I'm sitting in the locker room. Everyone already left except for me, my quarterback, and one other player. I'm not going to name them, but it was me. We were all spread out. We weren't sitting next to each other, but we were near each other. And it was just us 3 after that loss. And we were sitting there, and we were just crying for a long period of time because we understood that. And I was thinking at that moment, I'm like, wow, I really do know who cares about this team and about winning and about success. Because it was those 3 guys, us 3, who, after losing, we were the ones who showed the most emotion and the most care. Now, obviously, emotion doesn't mean you always care the most. Some people are naturally emotional.
Yeah, so,
but in terms of that, football, it's like, that really hit us hard, and you could see who it hit hard, and it hit us hard, and I look at those two differently now because it's like, wow, some other people did feel this way after the loss, so it's tough living with that, especially as a senior, because we were, the SEC championship was in our grasp, so I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive myself for that, but nonetheless, that aside, the lesson and I saw of those other two guys who we were just sitting in the locker room like 20 minutes after the game, everyone else is already gone, and we're just sitting there, upset about what happened. And it really showed me who had heart in the game and made me grow in respect for those two guys.
Yeah, I think moments like that are like super important when you go through times where you don't win and times where you could arguably blame yourself for that. And like, I think that's important. And one of the biggest things that I'm really proud that you're admitting is like accountability. Mm-hmm. A lot of people would be like blaming other people and saying it wasn't me.
It was my fault.
Well, it's good that you could be honest and admit that and like kind of take that and just be like, I'm going to get better for that. Cause like, I think, and I've said this to a bunch of people after your episode. You were probably one of the most well-spoken people, one of the most well-mannered people that I've had on this podcast.
Thank you.
And especially at your age. And I always would say that I'm like, this dude is phenomenal on and off the field. Like, and you can't, like, I always try to give people their flowers while, like, I'm still talking to them because, like, obviously life is limited, time is short. Yeah. So it's always, like, one of those things that I would tell people, too. Like, I'm like, this kid's got something, and this kid is really smart. He's got his head screwed on right, and, like, there are not a lot of people that are wired the way that you're wired, and, like, you definitely, for moments like that, also deserve pats on the back for the stuff that you do. Like, from an outsider's perspective, when I definitely interviewed the first time, you came across as a leader, you came across as accountable, you came across as intelligent, and like those are all good qualities in someone you want to be a leader on a team. Mm-hmm. And I think in a moment like that, to be able to show emotion and be a little bit vulnerable, I think there is, and I do agree with you that men should definitely show a little bit less emotion in situations like with physical pain and stuff like that. As someone who I promote obviously mental health and therapy and things like that, but I also have come to like learn and accept that balance is important for those things and not to overdo one side or the other, because sometimes stoicism can be bad where you're not showing emotions and it can come across as negative to other people. So, and being too emotional can also be very damaging to relationships. So I think having that middle ground where you can kind of show that this does affect me, like I do care about this. And when you do care about something really like the way you care about football and the way I cared about football, it's important to let the other people around you know that you value this sport and the value of this team. And I think you guys did that, and I think that's really awesome.
Certainly. It's not like we were crying to show that, we cared. It's like it was a natural reaction. Yeah. And the thing you said about emotion, one philosopher said, I don't know who, and I'm probably going to butcher the quote, but basically emotions never go away. They are buried later, and they come out at later times in ugly ways. So basically, it's not going to evaporate if you just kind of hide it. It's going to get buried, and it's going to, swell up in a way, and it's going to get worse. It's going to come out in like an uglier and worse way. So sometimes, again, physical pain, I think, so man, you got to be tough in physical pain, but physical pain is definitely different than mental pain and stuff like that. So nonetheless, emotions, when they're not expressed, they're going to typically come out in worse ways later on. So it's going to affect you. But I know, start off the podcast, I don't want to make everything sound depressing. Next game, we crushed Case. That was fun. We got our licks in, definitely. That's a game I'll point to, when I'm talking about some of the best times of my life. That was beating them after they beat us last year. So beating them, that was good. And then playoffs, it was tough. No one really expected us to win. We fought a good fight. We could have made it closer, but still proud of that. It's not like, it was a tough game. And then last week, we had a consolation game against Bellingham, and we just mopped the floor with them, which is funny because they were 3 seats higher than us in the playoffs. So it's like we shouldn't have blown out 30-6 a team that's 3 seats higher than us. Obviously, seeding was probably flawed. So that's annoying because it's like you could have played a worse team in the first round and made it further in playoffs because that team had no business being 3 seats in front of us when we mopped the floor with them. But nonetheless, and then beat them, which was great. Last Friday night late game at home. That was cool. And then obviously DR, we beat them first time in 5 years. Seacon actually scored the most points they've ever scored in the Thanksgiving game since 72, which was pretty cool. Damn. We scored, it might have been 40. So that was the first time since 50 years. So
Yeah, shout out to you guys. I was able to leave by like going to the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
I was like, this game's in wraps.
It was
an
amazing game. You know, I might have played with the most emotion that game, you could say. Last game, it was senior day, stuff like that. It's all hitting you pretty fast.
Yeah, talk about the emotions going into that game.
So that week, Spirit Week is, Spirit Week's during that. But that week is just like kind of like an emotional roller coaster. If you're one who takes some time to do some self-reflection on your situation, it's like, wow, this is my last practice. This is the last team dinner, whatever. It's like slowly it's coming to an end. And it was like 72 hours and 48 hours, 24 hours. This time tomorrow, the season will be over. It's kind of thing. And it's just like, wow. So I soaked that in, gave my senior speech. I hope I was able to leave them with some wisdom. It was kind of, it's sad. Obviously, the end of something good is sad, but what I hope is that I left them in the best position I could have. And like I said, I'm not perfect. I made plenty of mistakes. I can look back to this season, and I've made so many mistakes as captain. I'll own up to that. I made mistakes. Whether it's how I'm doing captain's practices or how you're dealing with other people's conflicts and stuff like that. I learned one thing. It's kind of funny. I really am into discipline and stuff like that. I find I'm not saying I'm disciplined, but I'm into the idea and concept of it. And I learned that you can't treat 14-year-olds like Navy SEALs when you're trying to run a team. It's bound for a conflict.
Absolutely.
When you're trying to treat them like you're going to, never mind, I'm gonna stop myself. But when you treat them like you're going to an action, yeah. You gotta keep in mind they're not Navy SEAls. They didn't enlist, right? Like this isn't like a combat army, So I had to realize that not everybody is a psychopath. But no, I digress. I learned a lot of stuff from leading. A lot of the learning though, is just like in real life, is from mistakes. And a lot of the mistakes I made have made me learn, so I don't make those mistakes again. And I'm happy with that, because there was definitely some like not so fun parts where it's like you're sitting after practice and, let's just say, you made some bad mistakes, leadership mistakes, which I hold myself accountable for. But I was able to learn from that. So, anyways, back to the emotions of the that week. It was an emotional week. It was Spirit Week. It kind of distracts you a little bit while you're in school, because it's not like you're just sitting in class like, man, my high school football career is gonna be done soon. So Spirit Week, but Spirit Week, you just want to make sure you're not distracted by that, because tug of war is cool and all. But
yeah, I saw that. It was on Twitter or something. I saw the video.
Yeah, we
did that mess your feet up? Because I know when we used to always have linemen do that, their feet would get all blistered up. So I don't know if that happened to you at all.
Thankfully not. I was in a loop, so I was running straight backwards.
Yeah,
so I wasn't pulling. But shout out to the tug of war team. We won every single year, even as freshmen.
Really?
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. But anyways,
if you're out there, I'm gonna bet on whatever team that you're on.
we had a good team. It was funny. We met, we would take, before the podcast, we were talking about how serious we take certain things, and it was like we met in the conference room beforehand, and we were drawing up like it was the stuff we were doing. It's like, anyways, but it was worth it. It was fun. But I remember I didn't enjoy it as much as I used to, because I was still focused on DR. I was like, we're going to war Thursday, so it's like, this is cute and all, but like, Thanksgiving morning comes and we're gonna be slitting throats, metaphorically, of course, but we're going to be going to war. So I was still in the back of my mind that entire Spirit Week. But yeah, it was an emotional week. I remember taking the senior lap. No, it's not like I ran it any quicker than I usually do, but taking the senior lap, all the we were talking about all the last things that you do your senior year. A lot of those things happen in the last week. But one of my favorite parts, most rewarding, was definitely the senior speech. Try to, one hear the other seniors talk, because, it's not all these kids are talkative, they're not all captains, they're not all vocal. So hearing what they had to say, and a lot of what they say is just enjoy while it lasts. And I heard the same thing for 4 years. Not because it's an easy thing, but it's true, But anyways, it was good. I was happy I was able to, say my piece, I hope so. And, just wish them the best in the future. In terms of the program, they have a really good future. Coaching and players. Coach Ashley and Coach Tex, they're great. They're great guys. They're great coaches, and they're dedicated husbands and fathers. So I deeply admire both of them. I know with that leadership, you don't need that great of players to be good. Even with that, they still have really good players. So, I'm happy that the season ended well, and then looking back, it seems like they're going to have a good future ahead of themselves. So that's good. I'm happy, that they're going to have a good future. So
yeah, it looks like the program's really bouncing back too from several years. Like, it seemed that things were starting to taper off, and things were starting, like the talent pool was definitely looking at other schools and things like that. So it's nice to see that Seekonk has actually also invested into their program, has also invested into facilities, and made it competitive enough to try to keep their students. And like, I think that's a good positive thing. And I also think it's positive that you have two guys running the coaching or running the team that are homegrown and that they've gone through the system. They know what it's like to go to Seekonk. They know what it's like to play for Seekonk, and they know what it means to put on the uniform. Yep. And when you have someone that knows that, I think that adds a certain type of like kind of like power behind it, and you can really motivate the guys to be like, I know what you're going through. I've been where you've been, and I think that's like super important. And then also to bring guys like Cam Sears who've been former players to kind of come back and like help out. And I think Andrew Brown was also a coach at one point. To have players that or former players come back and coach and be a part of the program is always like really dope. And you hit a great point about leadership and like being in that captain role. That's where I learned a lot of stuff about myself too, and like how to like I had to deal with a different group of guys than you had to deal with. I was telling you a little bit about our stuff that we had to go through, and we had a bunch of different personalities, and that's something you learn, and that carries also into like the workplace. Is like everyone's here for different reasons. Mm-hmm. Not everyone is also here for the same reasons that you're here for. Not everyone takes it as seriously as you take it seriously, and when you learn to accept that and accept people for what they are, that you can't change them, you can only try to motivate them, and there is a line with that. I think that is like a powerful learning lesson that you could take away from being in that position. Is not many people get a chance to be in the role that you were in and to do it for 2 years, I think. And to have that second year, I think really probably will benefit you in the long run to kind of have that experience, especially congratulations also going to Stonehill, D1, and going into that transition will be, I think, an easier transition being one of the top players, being a captain, being in those leadership roles when you're able to kind of be more receptive to like the coaching and as well as the teachings of older players. And I think it'll benefit you in the long run. I think you're gonna have a lot of great success at that school, and I'm definitely excited to see what you do and see how that translates. And when was the last time? I can't think of the last time a Seekonk football player received a D1 scholarship.
Some guy went to BC. I'm not too. It might have been 92.
What was his name? No,
Jay Swepson, maybe.
Yeah.
Not too sure, but yeah, that was really cool, and it's gonna be interesting being a freshman again. Obviously, college is a little different being a freshman. You know, you all want to be there. Coaches all want you to be there. But yeah, like I said about the captain thing, and like I said, it was an honor to be their captain. It was an honor to be able to lead them. And I know, it's the position itself. People look up to the captains. I remember when I was a freshman and a sophomore, I looked up to the captains. I admired them for who they were and their leadership, and they taught me a lot too. And I hope, some of these kids, they're going to be the future captains. They learn some stuff too, and it's passed down. You're talking about alumni, and I think it's important that we have alumni, especially in a small town, coming back to coach. Most of the coaching staff is alumni, which I think is great. It's funny though, because small town, close knit. Coach, our motto is hit, never quit.
Mm-hmm. The same one.
You know that. So the sign in the locker room.
Yep, right?
Still there.
Love that.
We hit that twice before we leave the locker room. Hit, never quit. And it's funny. Coach Ashley's dad made that sign, I think it was made Coach Ashley's senior year, but his dad made that sign. And it's funny because his first year here, he was talking about how it was cool to see his players hitting the sign that his dad made, a while back, 15, 17 years back. So it's like, that's really cool, I think, is, how you can see it's stayed in the family almost. And, football is a family thing, and especially in a small town, it's close-knit. So I think it's great that we have alumni on the coaching staff. Like I said, they're, really good coaches. In terms of recruitment, you mentioned Stonehill. They had a huge part in that. They were reaching out to coaches. They've reached out to coaches I probably didn't even know. So, helping with the highlight film and obviously the workouts, like, they were a huge part in that. And, helping me get to where, I wanted to be football-wise. And not just football-wise, as being a man, they've taught me some lessons and stuff, especially, like I said, going back to being captain, is you learn a lot of life lessons. I'm sure you learned a lot, too, especially if you're with a challenging group of guys. Obviously, the challenges are different because of the time we're growing up in. So it's like, you want everyone to, be held to a high standard. You want everyone to do well. And it's like, everything that's not going to be perfect. I remember... I was crazy. Like, I wrote the chain of command on the chalkboard. First day I get there early. Practice starts at 3. I get there at 9 a.m. and 9 a.m. literally. And I'm chalkboard or a schedule, all that. hit, never quit, quote of the week, whatever. And then I wrote chain of command. If there's any issues, go up and down the chain of command. Again, it's like I can't treat this like Navy SEALs. Obviously, the chain of command, it was accurate, it was stuff like that, but it's like you can't treat it like the Navy SEALs. It's not the Army. These guys aren't soldiers. They're just kids. They're 14, 15, or some of the younger ones, they're young. So that was a learning curve as well. And there were even some 8th graders. So it was like, so, sometimes you knock heads a little bit.
I was going to ask, how do you figure that in conflict resolution? Because that's something you have to learn, especially as a captain, is how to deal with those personalities and when things aren't going so great.
Yeah, the age gap was huge because unfortunately, there were kind of cliques, especially with the age gap. There were cliques.
That's how it always is, yeah.
So, it's hard to bring people 3 years apart with different, experiences and stuff and already instilled friend groups. But there were cliques, but nonetheless, I feel like myself, I was able to get to know, most of the guys there. I wasn't a part of any of those, cliques per se. And as captain, you really shouldn't be part of a clique.
I agree.
You shouldn't be a part of a clique as a captain. So I feel like I was able to get to know, and I would be able to talk to any of the guys now, and we get to know each other and stuff. So that was cool. But resolving conflict, it's tough because you see maturity is a huge thing. We were all immature when we were freshmen. It's understandable. Sometimes you have to look back and be like, okay, what was I doing when I was a freshman? You know what I mean? So it's like, what was I really doing? It's like, I know I've matured now a little bit. That's debatable, but I've matured now since when I was a freshman. It's like, we have to understand these people have not been through the process of high school and most of their maturity yet, so they're going to act different. There's going to be conflict there, and I don't get mad that this conflict is, you just got to resolve it. It teaches you how to resolve conflict because it's, not the conflict's not going to be the same. It's like whether it's something stupid on social media or someone's doing something stupid in class or someone's grades. You want to make sure kids have good grades. They're not failing off the team. You want to make sure kids aren't acting like idiots in the hallways and stuff.
That was always a big one.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that would always cause the stupid stuff. Get a principal involved. Someone gets in trouble. There was always some stupid shit. Here, does anyone, not on the football team specifically, but do people throw stuff in the hallways after lunch?
We used to have people would throw carrots and stuff.
Yeah, that's this. Some things never change.
Yeah, you're right. Human nature is the same. Some things never change. It's funny. I know we have a bit of an age gap, but we can relate to each other because some things never change, especially in high school. I can guarantee you that where people sit is the same. It's like this is where the football kids sit. This is where the girls sit. I'll say smart kids sit.
Different demographics. Yeah, we don't have to get. I know. No,
so, anyways, which is pretty funny. Even as years go on, some things remain still. So that's pretty funny to talk about. But conflict. It was some. It's petty stuff. I was like, I enjoyed being captain. It was great. It was a really enriching experience. But there's some petty stuff. It's like I can't wait till I don't have to deal with this. I'm no longer obligated to be these kids' caretakers. It's like because sometimes it feels like babysitting sometimes, but again, that's because I try to have a high standard for how we're going to be acting.
Yeah, you just don't want shit to blow up while you're on the clock. Basically, it's exactly. Manage it.
Yeah. So as I'm getting towards the season, obviously, I was gonna miss it all, but one thing I wouldn't miss is having to babysit some kids because it's not like it wasn't. Sometimes I make it seem it was worse than it was, but
No, I know what you mean. There's some people are just gonna do stupid shit. You can't control it.
Yeah, especially in the locker room too. It's like kids are gonna do stupid stuff in the locker room. It's the locker room. It's like you can do stupid stuff in the locker room, but there's a line. I think.
Yeah.
We've all done stupid stuff.
I was telling you some of the stuff that we were doing. You just don't want to cross that line, and it gets a little iffy, and it gets.
Yeah.
You don't want it where the locker room stuff gets onto the field or affects the stuff on the field, because once that happened, that's when things get into a fucking disaster.
I think we had a good line. I think we were able to separate what some of the joking around per se we do in the locker room, if you want to call it that, to the field. I think we were able to separate that for the most part, because you're gonna have fun in the locker room. It's like your football players, obviously stupid stuff, you don't want to do that, but you're gonna have fun. Yeah,
you want the locker room to be a safe space for people to kind of talk about stuff.
Camaraderie or whatever. You want to have good time with the guys. After all, it's high school football.
Yeah.
So you want to have a good time, but there's a line. You just got to make sure you're not crossing the line. It's very easy to cross the line in a high school locker room.
Especially the maturity level is not fully there. Still teenagers.
Different things for different grades. Obviously the freshmen are going to be more susceptible to doing certain stupid things than the mature seniors. So it's different things, but that was definitely an interesting part. But I'm not trying to seem like I'm obsessed with the locker room, but
it's good and bad.
In the locker room, it's just stupid little stuff that happened, and it's like, oh man, that was funny. But nonetheless, it's like it's not like there's no room for fun, but you got to make sure the room is appropriate room, and we're not making too much room because, like you said, you don't want to carry it onto the field because that's when stuff starts to intermingle and stuff gets messed up. So you want to keep, the fine line.
Yeah, I also want to talk about, before we get into some of the other stuff that we want to talk about on this podcast, what was the recruitment process for you like? Because I saw you sharing stuff on social media of you going to the different visits. So what was that like? It was probably kind of cool to kind of experience it.
Yeah, believe it or not, first, my choosing which high school to go to was harder than college.
Really?
High school, I'd be separated from friends, quote unquote. College, you're gonna be separated anyways. But anyway, I don't want to get off track again. So it was a cool process. I remember first coach reached out in like November of my junior year, just check in with my coach, and then from then, junior year, going to my senior year, that spring and winter, a lot of recruitment, junior days, like unofficial visits, stuff like that. Some of it, is a waste of time. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like junior days, there's like 100 kids going. It's like. It's cool and all. Junior days are more so to see the school and see the program and stuff like that. It's not really great for recruitment. I mean, it's not so. But anyways, that was cool. Believe it or not, I got my first offer on my birthday.
That's cool.
And the school that offered me on my birthday, I somehow decided to go there. But so yeah, that was pretty cool.
It's crazy how stuff like that happens.
Yeah, it is. I was debating whether or not I wanted to even go because of my birthday. It's like go up to college, but I did go, and it was a birthday I'll never forget. So that was cool. But recruitment process, it was a little stressful because you got a bunch of coaches reaching out like, hey, we want you to go to this camp, and some of it's just a waste of time. So it's hard to navigate that. It was I just wanted to get it over with as soon as possible. Like I committed in July, and that was after people telling me to push back. I could have committed in the beginning of May. Like it was stressful. I just wanted to get it over with because I wanted to focus on my senior year of football. That was my mindset, was focus on the senior season, get college done in the summer, get all that set up so I can complete, and I was able to do that, which was great, and that definitely helped. So I didn't really like it, like in terms of all the decisions and opportunities. Like, there's so many paths, and then you start thinking of where each path can go, and it's like overwhelms you a bit. You know what I mean? So I laid out the options, and it became pretty clear which one was the best option for me at the time, and I could have pursued other schools a little bit further down the road, but it just felt like I got an offer to a great school. I think it's gonna be great there. I'm excited for the future. It's like, I'm not going to waste my time. I want to get this all squared away, get my future squared away, and then focus on high school season with the guys. So
yeah, I think when I saw that you committed to Stonehill, I was like, that's a perfect fit. Like I had my cousin went to that university, and
cool.
So I was able to watch one of their games too and stuff. Yeah. I like the facilities. It was a great school, and I was like, that seems like a perfect match for you. Like just like the vibe of the school and stuff like that. I'm like, that definitely fits. That was a good match when I saw that. So, like, I didn't know they were D1, though. That's something I didn't know.
Yeah, they just moved up. This was their first year in D1. So, it's pretty cool.
What conference is that, like, part
NEC,
of? Like? Northeast
Conference. They took Brian's spot in the conference.
So, what kind of other teams, what other universities are they kind of playing?
So, they play Sacred Heart, St. Francis, Merrimack, stuff like that. Those are their conference teams. But they also play 3 out of conference. So, they're playing like UNH, University of New Hampshire this year. I think Georgetown and
Georgetown.
School. Yeah, so they're playing some big out of conference. We are playing some big out of conference teams this year, which is cool. It's a great challenge. I'm excited for it. So, yeah, but the NEC, 8 teams that they play every year. So, I think Stonehill is going to have a great future. So
yeah, I think so. I mean, if you're going there, I would definitely.
They already have great guys. I think they had a D1 roster when they were D2. You could say because no one transitions that great if you don't already have D1 kids. They transitioned really well, so it's going to be an exciting future. So, what are you most excited about going into the college experience? College itself or college football? We'll do both. Okay, and then we'll dive into some of the other college topics. Football. I'm looking, believe it or not, I'm kind of excited for the Stonehill freshman experience as a. I know most people may not like their freshman year. I think it's cool, especially after being senior. It's like a humbling thing. It's like, okay, I'm back to being like chain of command, back to being on the bottom of the chain of command, which is, it helps build character and stuff like that. And I think it's cool also playing with kids who are 3-4 years older than you. I thought that was cool as a freshman in high school because you look up to them. They're older than you, different experiences and stuff like that. So I'm excited for that to be like the young buck again. It's kind of cool being the young buck because like you get to look up. When you're older, you don't get to look up. You look down. Yeah. You don't like what you see. No, I'm just kidding. But you look. It's cool to look up to those guys. Stuff like that. That freshman experience. That, you got this future ahead of you. It's gonna be great. And then college in of itself. I'm I'm not really a party guy, so I'm really looking for the education. I'm excited to get a college education, get a degree, stuff like that. Maybe meet some new people. But like obviously, I don't go to college and make friends. Let's get a degree, play football, stuff like that. I'm looking forward to. So I think that's gonna be a good time. But we'll have to see what happens. I'm definitely gonna miss high school. So
Yeah, definitely these next several months, really enjoy them. And
yeah,
like,
yeah,
people will, you get both sides of the argument of like, your senior year being like some of the most fun times of your life. And
hmm
like, I think what people really mean by that is like the freedom and like the less of the responsibilities you really do have being in high school versus like once you get into adulthood, even post college, like the world is going to completely change for you. And I think you're well equipped for what's about to come, anyways. But there are a lot of people who do struggle with this transition. So I think also being a part of a team is going to help you with that transition as well.
yeah,
You also like one thing with college football is like, especially at your level, like it's a job. Like you got to
hmm
take it seriously,
yeah,
and like that. I mean, you already took it seriously in high school, so I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue. Anyways, it's something that you're very passionate about,
hmm
clearly. So I think the transition for you is going to be pretty smoothly. But that whole process of accepting that this is, you also have college classes and football, so it's like that stress is going to be a little bit different now, but I think it's also going to be a cool experience at the same time, especially your freshman year. There's nothing like your freshman year of
hmm
college because you get the one chance to kind of really immerse yourself into the culture of the
hmm
school. So definitely try to attend what you can attend, like
hmm
especially that early week, click with the guys that you click with and like really enjoy that experience because like as you get older you get less of those experiences and
yeah,
it becomes more of like, I don't want to say monotonous or like repetitive, but like life does shape itself out as you get older and like you get certain responsibilities. You get older, you have certain things that will tie you down as you get older. So the phase of your life that you're in right now, especially now that we're not in a really pandemic or
yep,
anything like that, I think really take advantage of it. And
yeah,
I think you will. And I'm excited for that. I want to give you a chance to kind of turn the page of this conversation. And I know you really want to talk about
yeah,
friendships and
yeah.
things like that. So I'll let you kind of navigate this and I'll feed off of it as well.
Yeah, so I guess you could say starting from the senior speech, one thing I said in my senior speech I remember was, you know, we may not be friends, we may not like each other, but we love each other and we're brothers. And that's something I think about a lot is that we don't have to be best buds, right? We don't have to be someone you always want to hang out with, but at the end of the day we're brothers. So, anyways, that makes you think about what is a friend then? You know, if there's a distinction between a friend and a brother, where's that distinction? Where's the line drawn? And the basic fundamental thing of a friend is they have to be looking out for you. They have to always want what's best for you as a friend. You can't be like some people think the friend's like the one who's always gonna support you, but if someone's supporting you in your destructive decisions, then you're not your friend. So if they see like for example, if someone's having a problem with like drug addiction or something like that, it's like if they're supporting you, yeah, man, do what you want. It's like I know that may seem like supportive and cool and all, but your friend's gonna be the one who's gonna look out for you. He's like, dude, you gotta stop. This is just hurting yourself. So, anyways, friend, they gotta be someone who's gotta look out for you. There's gotta be some trust there. It's like, so it really makes you think. Okay, how many friends do I have? Like, you look, people, your relationship, you got to really think of because, like, nowadays, everybody calls everybody their friend. And it's just not true. It's a self contradiction. Aristotle said, a friend to all is a friend to none. And that is so true. You can't be friends with every single person. It's impossible. All the different personalities, all the different conflict, you're never going to be friends with everybody. You shouldn't try to be friends with everybody because in the end, one way or another, you're going to compromise some value or yourself. So I would rather have one good friend than have 10 quote unquote friends who we're not even friends with, right? So it's like I don't want friends just to say I have friends. It's dumb. You want friends because friendship is important. So I'd rather have one great friend that I can count on, I can rely on than 10 guys who's like, yeah, maybe we'll be in like a fantasy football league together, but that's about it. So it really made me, reevaluate, what a friend is because the term friend is so overused. Everybody calls everybody their friend, and I get it's cool, but it's like no, you guys are acquaintances. The only reason you guys talk to each other is because the circumstances force you to. For example, people you go to school with or people you work with. You guys aren't talking because you're friends. You're talking because you work together and you're acquaintances, and you've been happen to put in the same environment together. It's a coincidence. It's not a friendship. It's not like you guys went out of your way to have a good old conversation. You were forced to have this awkward conversation. So, um, yeah, that's one thing about friendship. So it really makes you think, what is a friendship and, what are friends? And it's like, many friends do I want to have? How important is this to have? Friendship is important. You need friends. You need people that you can rely on. But the relying on thing is key. Who can you rely on? When things get tough, when things aren't going your way, it's like you got to think about who can you really rely on, who's going to be there for you, and who's going to be looking out for you.
That's really profound to have these thoughts at your age and to be thinking about these things, because it is super important now more than ever, especially with social media. Because you think about when like our parents were in school and stuff like that. Once they graduate, a lot of those people just disappeared and you never talk to them ever again. Now you stay in contact. I see people that I haven't talked to in years, and you really do have to kind of come to this own realization that most of these people were never your friends. You just were in the same place at the same time together 5 days a week, and that's really what it was. It's like you don't wish them bad or anything, but it's just you don't care what's going on, and the only thing that makes you aware of what they're doing is social media. So I think once you're aware of that concept, and also so many people take I'm one person too, like if I see someone that I knew that unfollowed me or something, I'm like, what the hell did I do? But like also I'm a social media content creator, so like I understand that my message is not for everybody anyways. So that's something I've learned to accept, but still nonetheless that you kind of have to let that stuff go. It's like, who cares if Joey or Billy or fucking Maddie unfollows you, and who cares what they're doing if they're not actively a part of your life, if they're not adding value to your life and not someone you can trust with your life, they don't matter.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people struggle with this, and especially at your point right now, you're going to notice that, and you're probably already noticing that, especially as you begin to turn the chapter of high school and begin your next chapter, is that a lot of these people are going to fall off for you.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, especially going from high school to college, who you're going to stay in contact with, and you'll be able to see were you guys really friends or were you just acquaintances per se? But I think social media, like you said, it kind of enhances the way in which you overuse friend, because we see quote unquote what other people are doing more. It's more easier access to communication, so it can really might like propel the overuse of friend. And the thing about social media is like, for example, you're talking about following and stuff like that. It's like, personally, social media, we talked about this previously, how distractive and dumb it can be. So if I'm going to follow someone on social media, it's going to be for a reason. There needs to be a good reason for me to follow this person on Instagram, whether it's like the stuff they're putting on their account, it's good, I want to see what's going on and stuff like that, or it's just someone you want to keep in touch with. So it's like, oh, wow, there's really no need for me to be following these people because it's just a waste of time. Now, I want to make a clear distinction. If you care about your follower to following ratio, I am sorry for you, because you are putting your hope in a computerized number that means nothing. When I follow people, it has nothing to do, I don't care how many followers I have, it has nothing to do with the following to follower ratio. It has nothing, because that means nothing, okay? But what I care about is the content that I'm seeing, because I'm not like a producer. I know you're a producer, so followers do matter because there's more people seeing your content. But like, I'm not producing social media content. So I'm a consumer on social media. So when I'm consuming stuff, I want to make sure I'm consuming the right stuff. I want to make sure I'm consuming that stuff that's not just like a waste of time. It's like, there's no point in me seeing this. I think it's great that Jason Tatum dropped 40 points, but I don't need it shared 40 times in the I think that's phenomenal. I just don't need that. It's not that I don't care, it's just it's not necessary, right? So social media, I've really, tried to like, okay, nothing against this person. It's not like, people sometimes take social media very serious, which I can understand, but it's like when you see someone liked your post. We see John Doe liked your post. Want to know what our brain says? John Doe likes you. And that's the big problem, is that people aren't distinguishing the post to the publisher. And so when people see the like, John Doe likes the post, they're like, oh, John Doe likes me. No, the person hit the screen twice and continued on with their day. So people get that like, oh, wow, John Doe likes me so much because they liked so-and-so. It's like, no, that's not true. It's social media. It's inauthentic. It's not necessarily real in a sense. So it's like, don't put your value into that. And unfortunately people do. So they make social media to be out this thing that's really not.
yeah, 100%. And like, I think a lot of people get caught up in the whole likes and followers stuff. And as someone who does produce content and stuff like that, it's something I pay attention to, but it's something that I always warn people, if they do want to get in this space, is like, don't overanalyze the number. Like,
Yeah.
As long as you're producing what you want to produce and you enjoy it, if you enjoy the process, if you enjoy what you're doing, that's all that matters. Like, I don't care if this podcast gets 1 view or 100 views or 1,000 views or 1,000,000 views. Don't care whatsoever. I enjoy talking to people week after week and actually having a real life connection with them versus just a conversation and looking at the views.
Mhm.
Who cares about the views? Like,
Yeah.
yes, they're important,
Yeah.
but like they're not defining. And I think not enough people really understand that concept is like you don't want the numbers to define you. You want the conversations
Yeah.
to be to have that value for yourself. And I think the more that I've focused on that, the happier I've been with the content. Is like, did I enjoy talking to that person? Did I enjoy that podcast? Yes. Then who cares what the number is attached to it? And I think that's a more positive message than who cares or how many followers do I have? How many views am I getting? Like, don't worry about
Yeah.
that. Especially if you're someone who wants to get into this space, just post.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. And to go off that point of just like being aware of what you're consuming.
Mhm.
Like, I think you made a great point of acknowledging that you're a consumer on social media, and that's something that I had to become aware of. Like, do I want to be a producer or do I want to be a consumer? I'm both, but I have to be wary of what I'm consuming and how
Yeah.
much of it I consume.
Yeah.
Like, the Jason Tatum point is so fucking valid. It's like you see it on every post. Jason Tatum does 40, 40, 40. It's like, how many times do you need to see that over and over again before you realize, like, I don't need to follow all these accounts. I only need to probably follow one of these accounts to get that
It's a
information.
waste of time.
100%. And like, once you start doing that and start focusing on the people that you actually care about and what they post, way more valuable. And I think that's a great point. And it's a great way to tie it up too between friendships and social media because those two things go really hand in hand. And I do want to transition into kind of, unless you had another point regarding those two topics.
Last thing I'll say about that is we talked about they do go in hand in hand. Look at Facebook. Facebook friends. It just ties into how overused the word. If you guys accept each other's requests, you guys are friends on Facebook. So it's like, again, that's that overuse of the word. 3 words are overused a lot: love, hate, and friendship. Those words are overused so much. And again, social media excels that, especially with the friendship thing. Because you like, oh, we're friends on Snapchat. We're friends on Facebook. It's like you got to draw the distinction between that. So that's the last thing I'll say on. We could talk about social media for hours.
Yeah.
We could be here till 3 a.m. talking about social media, but
It's, I wonder, because even the word follower is not like a great word either,
No.
because like that creates like a kind of a complex for people. It's like, I have this many followers that are following me, and it just gets a little iffy with that. And like, I wish they could have created a better word for it, but
acquaintances
or mutuals or something like that.
Acquaintances, something. You're not followers. You're not friends. Something else.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. That's a whole different conversation. I've never actually even really like you think about it, but like you never really think about it. And that's actually a really great point. But I do want to, we're getting towards the end of the podcast.
Yeah.
I want to transition towards the last topic they really want to talk about, was the 3 styles of communication, correct?
Yep. So there's 3, these things can all tie together in some way. So what I've learned and experienced, there are 3 types of ways in which people communicate and express themselves. The first way, which ties in well to what we were just talking about, is the way in which people express themselves and communicate on social media. This is the least authentic way. This is the most fabricated and less truthful way in which people present themselves. We can see in how they post and stuff like that is the ways in which they express themselves, or they'll highlight certain things to try to portray a certain image. So that way in which people present themselves on social media and what they post, third way of communication, that's the least authentic, that's the worst. Second is the ways in which people in person communicate with each other, but in groups. So let's say it was me, you, and 3 other people. We're in a group of 5 here. The way in which we're going to communicate is going to be more authentic than how we're going to communicate on social media. However, since we're in a group, and there's still that peer pressure per se, and there's still a group there, you're going to hold back some of what you're going to say, and it's not going to be as real as my next point, which is one-on-one conversation like this. Obviously no cameras, but one-on-one conversation. That's where you're going to get the most authentic conversation, communication, and self-expression is in one-on-one conversation, which both people there, they want to talk to each other, they want to hear what each other they each have to say. It's just there's that trust there too. So the thing is, in those 3 categories, there's a lot of variation in how real it's going to be. For example, the group, depending on who those 5 people are, it's going to vary. If it's 5 really lifelong friends that you have, it's probably going to be a little bit more intimate, in a way, more serious dialogue than if it's 5 guys you go to work with or you just met. So depending on that, there's going to be variation in which group. And then also, when you're having a one-on-one conversation, if it's like a stranger or if it's like, a friend that you've had for a good amount of time now, the dialogue's also going to be different. So there's a lot of variables in there, specifically with the people. The setting, of course, too, but specifically with the people in there, especially in the groups, is going to vary how serious. But yeah, 3 parts of communication. It's how we present ourselves on social media, how we present ourselves in groups in person, and then one-on-one, which is the most authentic. So once you realize that, you have to look, what are you looking for in conversation? What are you looking for in ways people express themselves? Are you just looking for the superficial stuff on social media? Or do you really want to get to know someone? Do you really want to get to that layer where, wow, I have a connection with this person? So those are the 3 ways on which you can communicate with other people. And it's funny, I didn't read that from a book. I didn't research it. I don't know if anyone's ever said that before. It's from self-experience and what I've learned in communicating with other people over the years. It's like, there are 3 types of ways in which most people express and communicate. And these are the 3. So it's pretty funny. If you really take some time to observe what goes on in your day-to-day life. One philosopher said, life unexamined is not a life worth living. So if you really examine that and really your interaction stuff, you can learn a lot. So I was happy through observation, I was able to learn. So with that information, you can say, okay, now I can try to see what type of conversation I want and how, beneficial do you want it to be?
Yeah, 100%. As someone who's done like so many of these different conversations, that like I've been able to kind of like make those same like conclusions and draw those same conclusions that you have, that you just stated, and especially the one-on-ones.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I've had to like learn how to navigate, especially when I talk to someone who I didn't know. Like the first time we had the conversation, we just knew each other through social media and through mutuals. Like we didn't know each other, so I had to establish the connection first.
Yeah.
Try to make you comfortable in the environment, and then have a true, authentic conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes from a place of vulnerability and honesty. Like if you don't present yourself as authentic, you're not going to draw the right people to you, and people will be drawn to you for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
So it's also trying to be aware of that concept, and also in the concept of a podcast too, when I do have the cameras and I do have these things, that there also is going to be a mutual benefit towards the conversation. Like that person's bringing something of value to the conversation, and I'm also giving them a platform to talk about that. So there is that kind of like handshake there that I've kind of had to like mentally check off. It's like we're also both benefiting from something here too as well. So that's always an interesting concept, and like noticing when I do multiple guests versus just a one-on-one, how the energy changes and how I have to, as a host too, navigate that conversation to make sure both people are being heard and seen, and like getting their points across in like a proper manner. Because if you have a bunch of people you've probably seen plenty of podcasts over the internet where people are just yelling back and forth, and it's like, that's not really digestible. Like that's not a good listen. And we're in a time now more than ever where so many people have different YouTube channels, so many people have podcasts, and you have to like kind of figure out, how do I be a good host where I also make this real? And it's not just for cameras, it's not just for social media, but it's also like we're face to face having a legitimate conversation, talking about real shit. And like that is like the hardest thing to do, is like one, be posting content that's like enjoyable, but also shit that's real and people can actually get something from, and that's also enjoyable for us. So that is like a huge thing that you learn, especially now with social media. It really changes the whole game of communication. And you made some really great points on that too, especially the groups and all those different aspects. And for someone in your position at your age to like be able to like draw these conclusions, I think that sets you up for way more success down the line, especially as you enter into college and enter into these different avenues. And I'm really excited to see what's ahead for you, especially as you enter into your freshman year next year, and especially coming up with like graduation, prom, all the cool stuff with senior year. Like I think you have a really great future ahead of you, and especially if you continue down the path that you're on, nothing but success, man. That's all I see. And like I said it to everyone. I said you're definitely one of the more enjoyable podcasts that I've had to have a conversation with someone who actually can carry themselves and project themselves in a proper way. And I know you put down in one of those interviews about being a president or something like that.
Yeah.
So like I can definitely get that energy from you. And like I said off podcast too, is like maybe create some type of social media presence in some aspect. Obviously you don't have to do a podcast. It's not your vibe. But like maybe figure out a way to like just showcase your skills in like the football field or posting stuff like that. However it may be. Obviously, if you don't want to, don't do it. But
Yeah.
like, I think it'd be cool. I'd be someone that would enjoy seeing that. Maybe just biased because I'm a content creator.
Yeah.
But like, I always try to tell everyone to try to get involved in the stuff. But I just also think that the people who come on this podcast, including yourself, have a ton of value to bring to this world, and people like you guys should be showcasing your skills and being out there instead of some of the stuff that we see on social media.
Yeah,
So that's the reason I say that. But we are getting towards like the end of the podcast. I do want to give you a chance to kind of give your closing remarks, whether it's motivational, whether it's just wrapping up what we're talking about. And you could also wrap up with possible goals going into the your freshman year and just kind of this next upcoming months, basically.
Sure. So, one thing I will say is I know it may sound cool, like, oh wow, you have this great understanding at such a young age. It's like, unfortunately, not everybody has my mindset. I'm not saying my mindset's great. That's up for debate. You know, different philosophies and stuff like that on life. So, unfortunately, I don't know many people at my age who have the same mindset as I do. So it can cause some problems because not everybody looks at life the same way in which you do. We all see life through a different lens, I would say. So when you're trying to, view life in a different lens and then still try to build meaningful stuff, it's like, it can be difficult. It can be challenging because, again, when you don't have the same perspective on certain things, it's going to be challenging. So it may sound great, like, oh, you have this quote unquote mature perspective at such a young age, but it's like, sometimes it's like, yeah, it's great. I'm happy I don't have like a, materialistic per se view on the world, but unfortunately it's like sometimes it not that many other people have the same view as you, so it's like you're really like the only one with that view, so it can be unfortunate. And I'll say this, it was great beating DR. I'm not going to say whether or not I still have the trophy, but I will say that it was great, and holding that trophy was great. And we definitely knew how to celebrate. We had a good time afterwards. I'll leave it at that. We had a good time afterwards. Unforgettable time. It's funny though. High school sports is so crazy because I remember that next week in school I was like, "What's the point of me being in school?" So then finally I got on track. Like, okay, I'm getting ready for college football. But if I wasn't playing college football, I'd really like, "What's the point of me being in school?" So my heart goes out to those guys who aren't, especially for those who really like the game. So yeah, I'm definitely, fortunate and blessed that I'm able to play on that next level. And I was able to make these memories and stuff. I was just talking today, actually. I was sitting with 3 freshmen at lunch today. I don't care about it. It's like, I really don't care at all. It's like, it's another person. I'll have a conversation with you. I really don't care about your age. I really don't care like you're a freshman. It's like, whatever. We'll have a meaningful dialogue. That sounds great. Meaningful dialogue, great. In a world of unmeaningful dialogue, I'll take any chance of meaningful dialogue I can get. So, anyways, I was talking to them. We were just reminiscing on some of the memories, and I was able to see some of their perspective from some of the stories they told. It was really cool. It's like even after the season's over, we were able to reminisce on some of the fun times. So, in terms of goals, I think football goals are great, but injuries and stuff can happen. So obviously, I want to be a good football player, but I want to be a good man. And physical injury, that's something that physical injury can't prevent. So I want to be a good man. I want to be help people, like I said, in whatever avenue I'm drawn to. That I want to help people, whatever way it is, and I want to have a good impact. I want to leave as just kind of cheesy, leave people better than you found them. So maybe I don't have to leave people, but I still want to have meaningful friendships. Again, I'd rather have one really solid friend that I can lean on than 10 quote unquote friends that unfortunately aren't going to be there when things go bad. So nonetheless, I want to thank you for having me on. It's really been great to have this conversation with you. I've been looking forward to this because, as you can probably tell, I try to find meaning in stuff, and I think stuff without meaning is obviously pointless. So I think this was meaningful. It was a great dialogue, and it's funny. You may not always know what you're going to say going into stuff, but you can start, like you said last podcast, bounce ideas off each other, and it's really cool. So this was a really great experience. I want to thank you for having me on and giving me the platform to be able to speak, and I hope listeners are able to draw something from this, one thing, so I want to thank you so much for having me on, Jared.
Of course, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you for coming on. It's always nice when someone wants to come back on a second time because that also shows I've created the experience that's worth having again. So appreciate you for wanting to do this again, and we'll definitely plan for maybe when you get back from college, like during that winter break, we try to get you back on. You'll definitely hit me up during that time, and I'll try to work with your schedule and put you back on like the calendar and stuff. And
yeah, it'll be exciting to see a year from now. You look back, last year was so different. Look, see where it is a year from now too. It'll be different then. So
I look forward to it. I look forward to all the new things that you accomplish and achieve in this next year before we get to that podcast. But again, appreciate you. For the listeners, if you guys like the podcast, please rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends, share with your family, share with your grandma. Check it out at thecarrollconnection.simplecast.com. Also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the major listening platforms. If you like to watch our podcast, you can check it out on YouTube. Just search The Carroll Connection or Jared M. Carroll. It should pop up right for you. And if you want to be a guest or return as a guest like Josh, you can hit me up on Instagram at Jared M. Carroll or at The Carroll Connection. Or if you have my number or Snapchat, text me or Snap or whatever you want to do, and we'll schedule that. So until next time, guys, peace.